Book 6, Book of Ken, Chapter 1, Part 3. Who raises our children? Continued. The gratification we derive from sexual experiences today is hardly satisfying. It is no more than an infinitesimal part of the satisfaction man experiences from the genuine co-creation appointed by God in partnership with Him, something we search for in vain for all of our lives. We are searching for it in the wrong places. The truth of this saying is indisputably borne out into our very lives. Anastasia represents a culture of some kind of ancient civilization which our historians probably haven't the faintest concept of. She completely destroys prevailing stereotypes. Just how perfect this culture was can be seen by considering how it dealt with pregnant women, who upon conception were expected to stay in the same place for 9 months and give birth there. How important is this? The advantage of this policy can be corroborated by information from modern science and comparative analysis. The place where the mother conceives and carries her child to be is termed a domain. In this domain, a man and a woman have established a garden with their own hands, a garden containing all sorts of plants. Physiologists recognize the importance of proper nourishment for a pregnant woman. This has been written up in dozens of scientific and popular publications, but what of it? It is necessary for every pregnant woman to study these? Is it? Just forget about everything else and set up studying the literature on the subject? That would be rather hard to swallow. If every single pregnant woman took to studying these scientific treatises, she would inevitably be faced with another insoluble problem. Where could she obtain the products recommended? Let's suppose a couple had unlimited funds at their disposal and could buy whatever they liked. An illusion. No money will or even can buy what a pregnant woman desires, and right at the very moment she desires it. I'm thinking, for example, of an apple, the quality a woman can pick in her own garden and eat on the spot. Then there are all these psychological considerations, which are no less important than the physiological. Let's take and compare two situations. The first is a standard scenario, which happens with the vast majority of people. Let's take a young family with an average or slightly above average income. A pregnant woman lives with her husband in a flat. Is she able to feed herself with the proper quality food? No. Modern supermarkets, even with those upscale prices, are unable to offer us any good quality food. Tinned or frozen food are not something natural for man. Well, what about farmers' markets then? Even there, the quality is doubtful, to put it mildly. Private farmers, too, have learned to use all sorts of chemical additives in raising their crops. When they're growing things for themselves, that's one thing, but when they're growing to sell, that's when their desire to make money pushes them to use all sorts of stimulating devices. Everyone knows about it, and so there is naturally a feeling of concern and alarm over using food from unknown sources. A feeling of alarm. A feeling that has become modern man's bosom companion. Pregnant women today are overwhelmed by an endless flood of information about constant social cataclysms and ecological disasters. Both her consciousness and subconscious become home to an ever-increasing fear over the future of her child-to-be. Where can we possibly find anything positive to counteract it? There are no positive aspects. Indeed, under the monstrous circumstances of contemporary life we have doomed ourselves to, there cannot be. Even in a comfortably appointed apartment, we get used to our surroundings and they cease to delight our eyes with anything new. We also get used to everything in the apartment aging and breaking, even as we are accustomed to tap water being undrinkable. All this, all of a sudden starts to weigh upon a pregnant woman's acute sensibilities. All she can do is hope for a miracle. Under the constant pressure of hopelessness, this is the most she can count on. In the second scenario, the woman is surrounded by a space of love, as Anastasia terms it, where in addition to the satisfaction of her physiological needs, she is also given a powerful psychological boost. Modern science is capable of explaining and demonstrating the truth of practically every one of Anastasia's sayings. They are all together simple and logical. The only wonder is that in spite of all our studied speeches on the subject, we have never given them much heed. But Anastasia also talks about the mysterious phenomena that modern science cannot explain. Parents should impart their co-creation with the three most important points, the three primary planes of being. She further says that for all three planes of being to merge into one spot, namely in one's family domain, the following must occur. The thoughts of two in love will merge into one. Here is the first point. It's called parental thought. The second point, or rather, yet another human plane, will be born and light a new star in the heavens, where two bodies merge into one, merge in love and with thoughts of a splendid creation. And a third point, a new plane of being should come about in that space. Right there on the spot where the conception occurred, the birth should take place, and the Father should stay close around, and the great all-loving Father will raise over the three of them a crown. I am certain that physiologists and psychologists will be able to explain the advantages of conceiving, carrying, and giving birth to a child all in the same spot, in a splendid kin's domain. But Anastasia talks about something even greater. She says that in such a case, the individual who is born experiences a complete connection with the universe. Why? How does it happen? How important is this approach to a child's birth for his future as a man? Scholars today can only guess. I tried to juxtaposing what Anastasia said with the prognostications of the horoscopes that are popular today. The question naturally arose, which of these 3 points Anastasia mentions is the most important constituent of a man's birth? The thought, the physiological conception, or the emerging of the infant from the mother's womb? It's generally accepted today that one's birth date is defined by the moment of emergence from the mother's womb. That's what horoscopes are based on. But science has already determined that the fetus, even before it has emerged from the womb, is alive and has feelings. If that is so, then the man already exists. He's already born. He can move. The mother can feel the push of his little legs and arms. Perhaps then it would be more accurate to calculate a man's birth date from the moment that the sperm fertilizes the egg. Certainly from the physiological point of view, this could be considered the most accurate defining moment of someone's birth, but the meeting of the sperm and the egg is still not a cause. It's an effect. It is preceded by the couple's thoughts. Could it be that these thoughts define one's birth date? Of the 3 moments that we have mentioned, it is generally accepted today that one's birth date is the moment of emergence into the world. Tomorrow, though, the calculation could be different. According to Anastasia's theory, man's birth date is the point where the 3 moments merge into one. And here may be seen her irrefutable logic. But we, and here I am referring to religious teachings as well as modern science, are afraid to even mention this. What is there to be afraid of? I queried. There is something, actually. You see, Vladimir, if we accept the irrefutability of Anastasia's statements, then we are obliged to admit that by comparison with the people of the culture she represents, that we are not fully fledged people. Most of us today are lacking in 1 or 2 of the components inherent in a fully fledged man. So that's why we're afraid not just to talk about it, but even to think about it. And yet we should be thinking about it. But perhaps we don't think or talk about these statements because they're too controversial? On the contrary, they are too uncontroversial. They are incontrovertible. First, think about this. Who will deny that a situation where thought rather than debauchery precedes the birth of a child, the meeting of a sperm and the egg, is more moral and physiologically fulfilling? Second, it is also absolutely indisputable that a pregnant woman should receive a wholesome variety of nourishment and avoid stress. One's own family domain, as Anastasia describes it, is ideal for this. I'm going to have to make a part 4 because it's raining.